It is time to talk about the 49ers running back position because they're almost certainly going to pick somebody up in the draft or right after it. By the way, I'm where I usually swim. It's a swimming buoy right behind me, except now it's a frozen over Huntington Lake. This part, don't worry, the water level's really low. I'm actually standing on snow. It's starting to melt here in the spring. You can actually see the trees, the stumps of the trees. Huntington Lake is a man-made lake. It was once a forest. First, I want to talk about these running backs because just look at the 49ers situation right now in the running back room. Jordan Mason's set to be a restricted free agent next year. Elijah Mitchell is going to be an unrestricted free agent next year. 2 more years on Christian McCaffrey's deal. And obviously, Kyle Juszczyk has already taken a pay cut for the 49ers this offseason at the fullback position. But that's an entirely different story. I think somebody like Ben Sinnott out of Kansas State, tight end, fullback, that might be somebody who the 49ers can draft in the mid-rounds to be an heir apparent to Kyle Juszczyk. But if the 49ers are going to go later rounds for a running back, which I would recommend that they do, then I've got a few names that I've just been looking at and I think could be intriguing. Top of the list is Jalen Wright out of Tennessee. He tested well at the combine. He watches tape. He's an explosive guy. He can hit the edge. He can hit the perimeter. And, you know, the best success the 49ers have had drafting running backs has come in the later rounds, undrafted free agency. When they've tried to go for these third rounders, I think that their strategy might have changed a bit with the Trey Lance era. I think they wanted bigger bodies for the zone read to be able to take the handoffs in the zone read. So I think that's where Trey Sermon came in, third round, 2021. I think that's where Ty Davis Price came in, 2022, third round. I think the 49ers, you've seen the best success when they let their R&D department, the guys looking at the specific metrics as far as how that running back is going to plug into the scheme. When they've let the R&D department do its job, it's worked really well. In 2021, for example, Elijah Mitchell. R&D department said this guy's a perfect outside zone runner. Based on the advanced metrics, he's been a perfect outside zone runner. I think Jalen Wright may be somebody who the 49ers R&D department really likes out of Tennessee. So look out for that. You can also go to the slightly bigger backs, the prototype of TDP, and Trey Sermon, but in a later round potentially this year. Ray Davis out of Kentucky, was actually born in the city of San Francisco, but then went to high school on the East Coast. Ray Davis might be a guy like that. The problem is, I don't know if the athleticism metrics are going to be what the 49ers want for that stretch scheme, because they do obviously want a lot of speed. But more than anything, you do want a guy who's versatile, who's adaptable, who's able to catch passes out of the backfield, because that's what Christian McCaffrey does, and that's who you're going to need if you want the offense to not skip a beat. So potentially look at somebody like Ray Davis out of Kentucky. And then finally, this is a wild card. This is Isaac Guerendo, formerly of Wisconsin. And then he transferred to Louisville. A lot of the analysts were saying Isaac Guerendo doesn't look like he plays fast enough, doesn't have enough athleticism. Well, Isaac Guerendo beat all the other running backs in the NFL Combine in the 40-yard dash. He's over 220 pounds, but he put up a 40 of about 4.33. So I would have a second look at this guy, especially if the analysts still think the same thing and he drops down to the later rounds. I don't think the 49ers should use valuable draft capital on a running back. They need to replenish the pipeline right now. They're going to need at least one more body, potentially for the 53, but probably 2, because you think about the 53 and then the practice squad. Depth at running back is absolutely necessary for this football team, and I would advise the 49ers to look at some of the names that I just listed so they can fill out the back of the room. Remember, Mason, restricted free agent. Elijah Mitchell, unrestricted free agent after this season. Look for the next Elijah Mitchell. He's been really good for the 49ers, especially considering the fact that he was a 6th round pick. This is Huntington Lake, one of California's Great Lakes, one of America's Great Lakes. And the story here, it's a World War II one, a B-24 bomber, which had taken off out of Fresno, looking in the winter for another plane that had crashed in these Sierra Nevada mountains in adverse conditions, also ran into those same adverse conditions. And because it was winter, they mistook this frozen over lake for an open meadow. And the plane crashed on it, and then obviously because it wasn't an open meadow, it's a lake, the plane sunk, and 6 of our servicemen lost their lives in 1943 in this lake. The plane is still at the bottom of Huntington Lake. They weren't unable to take it out because As you can see, a lot of these tree stumps behind me, because this is a man-made lake with a dam for the hydroelectric project in California, there are full trees at the very bottom of this thing, and I guess the plane got tangled once it sunk down in those trees. But still at the bottom of Huntington Lake, a piece of World War II American history, a B-24 bomber up here in the Sierra Nevada. All right, we'll be headed to more spots here in the Sierra at above 7,000 feet. High altitude, but it is thawing here. Spring is coming to the mountains.